The old library loomed in front of me like a haunted castle, its weathered bricks and sagging roof whispering secrets of a time long past. I had heard stories about this place, how it was filled with forgotten knowledge and mysteries waiting to be unraveled. But standing outside its heavy wooden doors, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The air was thick with an almost palpable sense of history, and I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. "Come on, Ethan," I muttered to myself, forcing my hand down. "It's just a library." As I stepped inside, the smell hit me like a wave. A mix of mildew, ancient paper, and dust that had settled like a blanket over everything. The dim light filtered in through the high, grimy windows, casting long shadows across the rows of towering bookshelves. My heart raced with excitement and trepidation as I ventured further into the labyrinth of knowledge. I could hear the faint creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet, a sound that seemed to echo through the silence of the cavernous room. I wandered aimlessly through the narrow aisles, my fingers brushing against the spines of the books, each one a potential gateway to another world. I pulled a volume off the shelf, a thick, leather-bound tome that looked as if it hadn't been opened in decades. The cover was cracked and faded, the title barely legible. I flipped through the pages, feeling the brittle paper under my fingertips. It was then that I noticed the whispers. "Ethan?" I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. The sound seemed to come from the book itself, an ethereal murmur that sent chills down my spine. I looked around, half expecting someone to be standing behind me, but the aisle was empty. I shook my head, dismissing it as a figment of my imagination. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself. "It's just an old place." But curiosity tugged at me, and I found myself drawn deeper into the library, navigating through the maze of shelves until I stumbled upon a dimly lit corner that felt oddly inviting. There, nestled between two towering shelves, was an old wooden table, its surface scarred and scratched from years of use. A single beam of light illuminated a book that seemed to be calling to me, its cover a deep, rich mahogany, adorned with intricate designs that twisted and turned like vines. I approached the table, my heart pounding. The book lay open as if waiting for me. I glanced around, half expecting Clara, the mysterious librarian, to appear and warn me against disturbing the ancient text. But I was alone, the silence of the library enveloping me like a shroud. I leaned closer, the air around me crackling with anticipation, and as I did, the whispers grew louder. "Ethan read me?" "Who's there?" I whispered, glancing over my shoulder to ensure I was truly alone. No response. I could feel the weight of the book's presence pressing against me, urging me to read. Slowly, I reached out and opened it wider, the pages fluttering as if they had been waiting for this moment. As I began to read aloud, the words felt foreign yet familiar, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. "In the year of our Lord, 1625, I continued, feeling an unexplainable connection to the narrative unfolding on the page. Suddenly, the shadows in the library shifted. I could feel them, creeping and curling around me, as if they were alive. I paused, a sense of unease washing over me. "Ethan?" The whispers coiled around my name, now a chorus of voices echoing in my mind. I shook my head, trying to dispel the growing sense of dread. "It's just a book," I reassured myself, forcing my eyes back to the pages. But the words began to blur, the text warping and twisting before my eyes. I was losing my grip on reality, and yet the allure of the story was too strong to resist. "Ethan!" The voice was sharper now, and I looked up, startled. Standing at the end of the aisle was Clara, the librarian. Her presence was both calming and unnerving, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of concern and urgency. "You shouldn't be reading that," she warned, her voice low and grave. "Why not?" I shot back, feeling defensive. "It's just a book. Just a book," Clara echoed, stepping closer, her expression growing serious. "This library holds secrets that should remain buried. The book you're holding, it's not what you think. It has a mind of its own, and it lures people in with promises of knowledge." I scoffed, rolling my eyes. Promises of knowledge? You sound like one of those conspiracy theorists. Ethan, she said, her voice firm, you have to understand. The knowledge you seek may come at a terrible cost. People have disappeared trying to uncover the truths hidden within those pages. I hesitated, Clara's words sinking in. What do you mean, disappeared? It's the book, she insisted, her eyes narrowing. It feeds on curiosity, on the desire to know. It will take everything from you, and it will not stop until it gets what it wants. I shook my head, dismissing her warnings. You're just trying to scare me. This is just a story, Clara. I can handle it. Can you? She challenged, her gaze piercing through me. What if the stories within that book are about your family? What if they reveal things you're not ready to face? My heart raced at the thought. What if? But I couldn't let her see my uncertainty. I'm not afraid of my past, I declared defiantly, though I felt a flicker of doubt. Then you'll be the first to unravel the truth, Clara replied, her voice softening slightly. But remember, knowledge comes with a price. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat as the shadows around me thickened, swirling with a life of their own. I could feel the temperature dropping, and I glanced around, unnerved. What's happening? They're awakening, Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. You must stop reading. But I couldn't. The book was alive in my hands, and the stories it held were entrancing. The shadows danced closer, and I could almost hear them beckoning me to continue. I need to know, I whispered, more to myself than to her. Ethan, please, Clara implored, desperation creeping into her voice. You have to listen to me. You don't understand the danger you're putting yourself in. Danger? I scoffed, the thrill of the unknown igniting my curiosity further. If there's something hidden in these pages, I have to find it. I can't just walk away. Then you'll be lost, she said, her tone filled with sorrow. You think you're invincible, but that book is a gateway to things you can't comprehend. You're playing with forces that have long been forgotten. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, drowning out Clara's voice. Ethan, continue. I felt my resolve waver, but the pull of the book was too strong. I took a deep breath and opened the pages again, the words flowing over me like a tidal wave. In the year of our Lord, 1625. As I read, the shadows twisted and writhed, a dark symphony of secrets and whispers enveloping me. Clara's figure faded into the background, her protests becoming mere echoes in my mind. I was entranced, lost in a world where every word felt like a key unlocking hidden doors to the past. The library around me faded into a blur, the echoes of time swirling in a dance of shadows and light. I was no longer just Ethan. I was a seeker of truth, and the book held the answers I craved. But as the words spilled from my lips, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a trap, one from which there would be no escape. And yet I couldn't stop. The pages turned, and my fate began to intertwine with the whispers of the past. As I stepped into the old library, an overwhelming sense of mystery enveloped me like a cloak. The air was thick with the musty scent of mildew and aged paper, a scent that told stories of times long past. My gaze wandered over the rows of dusty books, their spines cracked and faded, each one a vessel of untold secrets. The dim light filtering through the grime-covered windows danced over the surfaces, casting eerie shadows that seemed to whisper in the silence. It was then that I caught sight of it. A book nestled deep in a forgotten corner of the library, its leather cover worn and dull, almost as if it had been waiting for someone to unearth it. As I approached, I felt an inexplicable pull, an urge to reach out and touch it. I brushed my fingers over the surface, feeling the coolness of the leather and the grit of dust that had settled upon it. I hesitated for a moment, a slight shiver running down my spine before I opened the cover. As I did, a soft murmur emanated from the pages, like whispers carried by a gentle breeze. I leaned in closer, the sound drawing me in, igniting my curiosity. "What are you?" I murmured, half to myself, half to the book. The words seemed to swirl around me, wrapping me in a cocoon of intrigue. I could hardly believe my eyes as I scanned the text, It was unlike anything I had ever seen. The more I read, the more I became entranced, each word a thread pulling me deeper into its narrative. It chronicled the history of our town, detailing events I had never learned in school, tragedies that had been buried under the weight of time. But as I flipped through the pages, I found something even more unsettling: mentions of my own family, names I recognized, events I had never known. My heart raced as I read about the misfortunes that had befallen them, a lineage intertwined with sorrow and mystery. Ethan, a voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back to the present. I looked up to see Clara, the librarian. Her presence was almost spectral, her eyes wide with concern as she stepped closer. "You shouldn't be reading that." "Why not?" I shot back, a mix of defiance and curiosity bubbling within me. "It's incredible. It's like it knows my family's history. There's so much here that I need to understand." Clara shook her head, her expression grave. "You don't understand the dangers, Ethan. That book is not just a record of history. It holds secrets that are better left undiscovered. You must stop before it's too late." I felt a flicker of doubt, but quickly brushed it aside. "I can't. I'm on the verge of discovering something monumental. If this is about my family, I need to know." I returned my focus to the pages, determined to unravel the mysteries they held. As I continued reading, the shadows of the library seemed to shift, as if they were alive, watching me with unseen eyes. I could almost feel them closing in, the air growing heavy with anticipation. The whispers intensified, filling my head with echoes of the past. I pressed on, my voice rising as I began to read aloud, the words spilling forth like an incantation. On the night of the great storm, the house on Elm Street was engulfed in flames, claiming the lives of those within, but not all perished. The shadows danced across the walls, and I felt a chill creep up my spine. A tingle of fear mingled with excitement, and I couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. What truths awaited me, hidden between the lines of this ancient tome. Suddenly, Clara's voice cut through the atmosphere again, more insistent this time. "Ethan, please, you must listen to me. The more you read, the more you expose yourself to its influence. It demands a price for every secret it reveals." I met her gaze, my resolve hardening. "I don't care about the price. This is my family's history. I have to know what happened." She stepped closer, a look of desperation in her eyes. "You don't understand. The tragedies you're reading about, they're not just stories. They're warnings. You're playing with forces you cannot comprehend." But I was far too engrossed to heed her warnings. The connection I felt to the book was undeniable, and the deeper I delved, the more I felt as though I was being drawn into a web of fate. The words seemed to resonate within me, awakening a curiosity that had long lain dormant. I could not turn back now. "Clara, I appreciate your concern, but I need to find the truth. If there's something more to my family's story, I have to uncover it." My voice held a certainty I hadn't anticipated, a newfound determination that surged through me. With a resigned sigh, Clara stepped back, her shoulders slumping as if she had given up on trying to save me. "Very well, Ethan, but remember you were warned. Once you start down this path, there may be no turning back." Her words lingered in the air, a haunting echo that I brushed off. I returned to the book, my heart pounding in anticipation. Each page I turned revealed more about the hidden tragedies of my family, losses that had left scars on the very fabric of our lineage. I read about a great uncle who had vanished without a trace, a great-grandmother who had succumbed to madness after losing her children, and dark secrets that had been buried for generations. Why didn't anyone tell me? I whispered to myself, the weight of the revelations pressing down on me. The deeper I went, the more I felt a strange sense of belonging, as though I was meant to discover these truths. I could hear Clara's warnings, but they felt distant, overshadowed by the urgency of my quest for knowledge. As I flipped to a new page, the text began to shift and change before my eyes, forming into vivid scenes that played out like a movie. I saw my ancestors, their faces twisted in anguish, their eyes pleading for someone to remember them. I could almost hear their cries, the weight of their sorrow crashing over me like a wave. I was no longer just reading. I was experiencing their pain, their loss, their secrets. "Ethan," Clara's voice broke through again, but this time it felt more like a distant call, fading into the background of my mind. I was entranced, lost in the stories that unfolded before me. I needed to know more. I had to see it all. With each word I spoke, the shadows around me thickened, the library transforming into a darkened sanctuary where the past came alive. I felt a chill creep up my spine, but I pressed on, driven by an insatiable desire to unlock the mysteries that had haunted my family for generations. It was no longer just a book. It was a portal to a past I was desperate to understand. And as I read, I could almost hear the voices of my ancestors, whispering to me from the depths of time, urging me to uncover the truth that had long been shrouded in darkness. The moment I stepped into the old library, I was engulfed by an atmosphere thick with mystery. The air was heavy with the smell of mildew and aged paper, a scent that clung to the walls and filled my lungs with a sense of forgotten tales waiting to be unearthed. Dust motes danced in the beams of light streaming through cracked windows, illuminating the countless tomes that lined the shelves. Each book seemed to whisper secrets of its own, but my attention was drawn to the farthest corner, where shadows pooled like ink. As I wandered deeper into the library, my fingers trailing along the spines of the neglected volumes, I felt an inexplicable pull toward a particular shelf that looked more decrepit than the rest. It was there that I found it, a dusty, leather-bound book that seemed to exude an energy all its own. The cover was worn, the title illegible beneath layers of grime, and yet it beckoned to me. I reached out, brushing away the dust, and as I opened it, a series of soft whispers echoed in my ears. "Read me," they seemed to say, a siren call that sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, glancing around the dimly lit aisles as if expecting someone to appear and warn me away. But the library was silent, save for the soft rustling of the pages in my hands. Intrigued, I began to read aloud, the words flowing over my lips like an incantation, and with each syllable, I felt the shadows around me shift and sway, as if they were alive and watching. Days passed in a blur as I became increasingly absorbed in the book. The stories it contained were unlike anything I had ever encountered, a tapestry of historical events woven with threads of personal tragedy that resonated deep within me. I learned of the city's past, of triumphs and failures, but more hauntingly, it revealed secrets about my own family, narratives of sorrow and loss that had been buried and forgotten. This was not just a book. It was a mirror reflecting my own bloodline, and I felt an unbreakable bond forming with its contents. It was during one of these late-night readings that I first encountered Clara. She emerged from the shadows like a specter, her presence both ethereal and unsettling. "You shouldn't be reading that," she warned, her voice a soft tremor that echoed through the dusty air. Her eyes bore into mine, filled with an urgency that sent a jolt of apprehension through me. "Who are you?" I asked, startled by her sudden appearance. "I am Clara, the librarian here," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "That book is dangerous. It holds truths that come at a cost. You must stop before it consumes you." "Consume me?" I scoffed, waving my hand dismissively. "I'm not afraid. I'm discovering things about my family that I never knew. This is monumental." Clara shook her head, her expression a mixture of pity and concern. "You don't understand. The knowledge you seek often comes with sacrifices. You may lose far more than you gain." But her warnings fell on deaf ears. The allure of the book, with its tantalizing secrets, had me firmly in its grip. I could feel the weight of history pressing down on me, the stories yearning to be told. I brushed past Clara, returning to my reading, the flickering lamplight casting eerie shadows that danced across the pages. It wasn't long before my friends, Jake and Sarah, began to notice the change in me. I was consumed by an obsession, and they could see it etched across my face. One evening, as we sat in our usual spot at the coffee shop, Jake leaned in, concern etched on his brow. "Ethan, you've been acting really strange lately. What's going on? You've barely been around." "Yeah, you're different," You hardly even laugh anymore, Sarah added, her voice laced with worry. I shrugged them off. I've just been busy with a project. You wouldn't understand. Busy with what? That creepy old library. Jake pressed, his tone shifting to one of frustration. You need to stop going there, man. It's not healthy. I felt a surge of defiance rise within me. You guys don't get it. I'm on the verge of discovering something monumental about my family. This is important. Important? Or dangerous? Jake shot back, his voice rising. You're losing yourself in this obsession. You need to listen to us. Listen to you? Why should I? I snapped, my grip tightening around the book I had brought with me. You don't know what I'm experiencing. You haven't seen what I've seen in those pages. Ethan, please, Sarah said, her eyes pleading. We care about you. Just put the book down for a bit. Let's hang out like we used to. But I could feel the book's pull growing stronger, a magnetic force urging me to delve deeper into its mysteries. I shook my head defiantly. No, I'm not done. I'm so close to uncovering something critical. I can't just walk away now. In a moment of frustration, Jake reached out, attempting to snatch the book from my hands. Ethan, this isn't worth it. You need to stop. I jerked away, clutching the book to my chest, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Don't touch it. You don't understand. Then help us understand, Jake shouted, his voice a mix of desperation and anger. What's in there that's so important? You're pushing us away. I struggled to find the right words, my heart racing. It's not just a book. It's my family's history. I can't just ignore it. I won't. Frustrated, Jake threw up his hands. You're being reckless. If you keep this up, you might lose us too. The weight of his words settled heavily in the air, and for a brief moment, I felt the stirrings of doubt creep in, but I quickly pushed it aside. The book was my lifeline, my connection to a past I desperately wanted to grasp. I don't have time for this, I muttered, turning away from them. I could sense their disappointment and concern, but I was resolute. The shadows of the library called to me, and I was determined to answer. As I walked away, I could feel the tension between us simmering, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of discovering something monumental, something that could change everything I thought I knew about my family. The thought of their disappointment faded, overshadowed by the urgency to uncover the secrets that lay within the book's pages. The library loomed ahead, its towering shelves and dusty corners calling to me with an irresistible allure. As I stepped inside, a wave of nostalgia washed over me, mixed with an inexplicable sense of dread. The air was thick with the scent of mold and aged paper, creating an intoxicating atmosphere that seemed to whisper secrets long forgotten. Each footstep echoed softly against the wooden floor, as if the building itself were alive, welcoming me into its depths. I wandered through the narrow aisles, running my fingers along the spines of countless tomes, their titles obscured by layers of dust. It was in a forgotten corner, shrouded in shadows, that I found it. A book unlike any I had ever seen. Its leather cover, worn and faded, beckoned to me from a high shelf, and I felt an inexplicable pull toward it. I reached up, my hand trembling slightly as I grasped the volume, pulling it down into the light. As I opened the book, a soft murmur filled the air, like a chorus of voices whispering just beyond my comprehension. I looked around, half expecting someone to be standing nearby, but the library was empty. The murmurs seemed to emanate from the very pages, and my heart raced with both fear and excitement. Ignoring the instinctual urge to close the book and run, I began to read aloud. The words flowed over me, each one resonating with a weight that felt almost tangible. Shadows danced along the shelves, flickering in the dim light, and I could swear they were stretching toward me, as if drawn by my voice. I glanced around again, uneasy. Was I truly alone? The atmosphere shifted, thickening with an energy I couldn't quite place, and I felt a prickle of awareness, as if unseen eyes were watching me closely. Time lost all meaning as I continued reading, absorbed by the tales of my town's history that unfolded before me. Each passage revealed not just dates and events, but personal stories, tragedies and triumphs of families that inhabited these streets long before I was born. But as I delved deeper, I began to notice something unsettling. References to my own family, events I had never known existed. It was as if the book were pulling me into a world I was destined to uncover. "Ethan?" A voice interrupted my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. I turned to see Clara, the librarian, standing before me. Her presence was striking, with an air of authority that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. "You shouldn't be reading that book," she cautioned, her eyes narrowing. "It holds secrets that are better left undisturbed." I hesitated, the pull of the book still strong. "But it's fascinating. There's so much here about my family. Things I never knew," I replied, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and defiance. "I need to understand. I'm so close to uncovering the truth." Clara stepped closer, her expression grave. "Ethan, there are dangers involved in what you're doing. Each secret you unravel comes at a cost. You may not be prepared for what you find." Her warning sent a chill through me, but I brushed it off. "I appreciate your concern, but I can handle this. I have to know." My resolve hardened, fueled by a desire to connect with my family's past, no matter the risk. As Clara retreated, I returned to the book, ignoring the lingering unease in my gut. The words seemed to pulse with life as I read on, an intoxicating blend of history and personal narrative intertwining. The shadows around me grew darker, more pronounced, and I could almost feel the weight of the stories pressing down on me. The more I read, the more I felt a connection to the voices within the pages. They became familiar, almost comforting, as if they were guiding me towards something greater. Yet, with every revelation, I felt an undercurrent of foreboding, a sense that I was treading on sacred ground, and that the past was not done with me yet. That night, after an intense reading session, I struggled to find sleep. My mind raced with the images and stories I had unearthed. I closed my eyes, hoping for rest, but instead, I was met with visions that felt painfully vivid. Figures from the past began to materialize in my dreams, their faces blurred but their expressions hauntingly clear. "Ethan?" A familiar voice echoed in the darkness, piercing through the fog of my subconscious. I recognized it immediately. It was my grandmother, who had passed away when I was just a child. Her presence filled me with warmth and sorrow at once. "You must stop this," she urged, her voice a whispering wind that brushed against my ear. "It's dangerous." I reached out, desperate to hold on to her, but the dreamscape shifted, and her figure flickered like a candle in the wind. "Please, you don't understand," I pleaded, my heart racing. "I need to know what happened to us. I need to understand our history. Ethan, listen to me," she insisted, her voice growing fainter. "There are things buried in the past that should remain hidden. You're not ready for the truth. Don't go," I shouted, but her image dissolved into shadows, leaving me alone in the dark. I jolted awake, the remnants of the dream clinging to me like cobwebs. My heart raced as I lay in bed, the weight of her warning pressing heavily on my chest. But as the sun rose, the fear began to fade, replaced by an insatiable curiosity. I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Ignoring the lingering apprehension, I returned to the library the next day. The familiar scent of old books wrapped around me, and I felt a sense of purpose as I approached my beloved book. My fingers trembled as I opened it once more, diving back into the stories that captivated me. I was unaware of the shadows that lurked in the corners, waiting and watching. Hours passed as I immersed myself in the narratives, completely oblivious to the world around me. The lines between past and present blurred as I read of family tragedies that echoed through generations. The book seemed alive, its pages turning themselves as if urging me to delve deeper into the mysteries that lay within. And then it happened. Figures started to manifest in my periphery. At first, they were just fleeting glimpses, shadows moving just outside my line of sight. But as I continued to read, the apparitions grew clearer, more distinct. I blinked in disbelief as familiar faces emerged from the recesses of my mind. My ancestors, lost to time but now standing before me, their expressions a mix of sorrow and urgency. "Ethan," one of them called, his voice a low rumble that reverberated through the air. I recognized him as a distant relative, someone I had only seen in old photographs. "You must stop this. You're awakening forces you cannot comprehend." "But I have to know," I protested, my voice filled with desperation. The weight of their collective gaze pressed down on me, a chorus of the past warning me against the path I had chosen. "Knowledge has its price," another figure whispered, her eyes filled with a haunting sadness. "We made our choices, and now you must face the consequences of your curiosity." As their words sank in, the shadows around me thickened, swirling like a tempest. I felt their pain, their regrets seeping into my bones, binding me to their stories. Yet, despite the warnings, I felt drawn to the book, an irresistible urge pushing me to uncover the truth, to break free from the chains of ignorance. Ignoring the apparitions, I pressed on, convinced that understanding their struggles would somehow set me free. "I'm not afraid," I declared defiantly, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "I refuse to be haunted by the past. I will learn the truth." But with each word I read, the shadows grew darker, and the whispers turned into anguished cries. The energy in the room shifted, and I could feel the weight of their disapproval bearing down on me. I was teetering on the edge of a precipice, and I could sense that the abyss was waiting just below. As I closed the book for the day, I felt the chill of their presence lingering, a reminder that I was not alone. I left the library, my heart racing and my mind swirling with the revelations I had uncovered. I knew I was headed down a treacherous path, but the allure of the truth was too powerful to resist. The shadows of the past were closing in, and I was determined to confront them, no matter the cost. The air in the old library was thick with the scent of mold and aged paper, wrapping around me like a heavy cloak as I stepped inside. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath my feet, creating a symphony of whispers that echoed through the dimly lit room. Dust motes floated lazily in the shafts of light that filtered through the grimy windows, giving the place an ethereal quality that was both inviting and foreboding. I felt drawn to the towering shelves, each one packed with ancient tomes and forgotten stories, as if they were calling my name. It was there, in a secluded corner, that I stumbled upon it, the book that would change everything. It was tucked away on a dusty shelf, its leather cover worn and faded, almost as if it had been waiting for me. I reached out, brushing my fingers over the surface, feeling the texture of the aged leather, and a shiver ran down my spine. There was something unsettling yet captivating about it. I pulled it from the shelf, and as I did, a cloud of dust erupted, momentarily obscuring my vision. When the dust settled, I opened the book, and that's when I heard it. A soft, haunting whisper that seemed to emanate from the very pages themselves. My heart raced as I leaned closer, straining to catch the words that slipped through the air like secrets. It was as if the book itself was alive, beckoning me to delve deeper into its mysteries. "Ethan," the whisper said, echoing in my mind. I glanced around the library, half expecting to see someone else lurking in the shadows, but I was alone. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and a chill raced through me. My curiosity ignited. I began to read aloud, my voice breaking the silence of the library. With each word I spoke, I felt the shadows around me shift, dancing along the spines of the books as though they were alive. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The atmosphere grew dense, charged with an energy I couldn't quite comprehend. I pressed on, the murmurs growing louder, weaving around me like a dark tapestry of history and secrets. The more I read, the more engrossed I became. The book chronicled the history of the town, detailing events and tragedies that felt eerily familiar. As I flipped through the pages, I stumbled upon mentions of my own family, stories of heartache and loss that I had never heard before. It was as if the book was pulling back the curtain on my lineage, revealing things I was never meant to know. "Ethan, stop!" A voice broke through my concentration, startling me. I turned to find Clara, the enigmatic librarian, standing not far from me, her expression a mix of concern and urgency. "You shouldn't be reading that. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" I echoed, incredulous. "This is history. My history. I need to know." Clara stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "Each secret you uncover comes with a price. You don't understand what you're dealing with." I shook my head, brushing aside her warnings. "You don't get it, Clara. I'm on the brink of discovering something monumental about my family. I can't stop now." "Ethan, please." Her voice softened, but the urgency remained. "You're playing with forces you can't begin to comprehend. They'll take from you more than you're willing to give." But I was already too far gone, caught in the web of curiosity and obsession. I could feel the book's pull growing stronger, as if it had identified me as its next victim. Clara's words faded into the background as I returned my attention to the pages. As the hours slipped by, I found myself lost in the stories, enthralled by the dark tales of my ancestors. But with each revelation, an unsettling feeling crept into my mind. I began to notice strange occurrences around me, objects shifting subtly in my peripheral vision, hushed voices that seemed to echo my thoughts. I dismissed them at first, attributing them to my overactive imagination, but deep down, I knew something was changing. In the weeks that followed, my friends Jake and Sarah grew increasingly concerned about my obsession with the library and the book. They approached me one evening, their faces etched with worry. "Ethan, we need to talk," Jake said, his voice firm yet tinged with anxiety. "You've been acting weird. This book, it's consuming you." "Consuming me?" I laughed, but the sound felt hollow. "I'm learning about my family, our history. You guys wouldn't understand." Sarah chimed in, her eyes pleading. "We do understand, Ethan, but this isn't just about family secrets. It's about your well-being. You need to step back." "Step back?" I shot back, frustration boiling over. "You think I'm just going to walk away from this? I'm on the verge of discovering something incredible." Jake stepped forward, his expression intense. "Ethan, listen. This book is changing you. You're not the same person anymore. You need to put it down." But I couldn't. I felt the words of the book wrapping around me like chains, binding me to its secrets. "You don't know what you're asking me to do," I said, my voice low and strained. "You don't know what's at stake." In that moment, Jake reached for the book, trying to pry it from my hands. "I'm not going to let you do this to yourself." I pulled away, the book clutched tightly to my chest. "You don't understand. I have to see this through." "Ethan," Jake's voice rose in desperation. "Stop. You're risking everything." But I couldn't hear him anymore. I was engulfed in the pages, in the whispers that grew louder and more insistent. I felt a dark energy surrounding me, drawing me deeper into its grasp. I was no longer just reading. I was part of the story, entangled in a web of secrets and shadows that threatened to consume me whole. As the nights passed, the line between reality and the visions I began to see blurred. I started having dreams. Vivid, haunting dreams where figures from the past reached out to me, their faces twisted in anguish. One night, I saw her. My grandmother, a woman I barely remembered, her face a fleeting image from my childhood. She looked at me with sorrowful eyes, her voice a whisper in the dark. "Ethan, please, you must stop." Her words were a plea, a desperate warning that sent chills racing through me. I wanted to reach out to her, to pull her close and ask her what she meant. But the dream shattered, leaving me gasping in the darkness of my room. Ignoring the visions that plagued me, I buried myself deeper into the book, determined to uncover every secret it held. The shadows in the library grew more pronounced as I continued my reading, wrapping around me like a shroud. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy that crackled with foreboding. One evening, Clara returned, her face pale and grave. "Ethan, you don't understand the consequences," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "Each secret you uncover, it demands a sacrifice." "What do you mean?" I asked, suddenly feeling a knot of dread forming in my stomach. "Every truth comes at a cost," she replied, her gaze piercing into mine. You must be prepared to lose something precious if you continue down this path. I dismissed her words, convinced that I was invincible. You're just trying to scare me, I said, waving her off. I can handle this. But deep down, I felt a tremor of fear. I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Still, the allure of the book was too strong. I pressed on, unable to resist the temptation of the knowledge it promised. Days turned into nights, and as I read, strange occurrences began to unfold around me. Objects would shift on their own, whispers would fill the air, and I could have sworn I saw fleeting shadows darting through the corners of my vision. It was as if the very essence of the library had come alive, reacting to my presence. Then came the nightmare that shattered my resolve. I found myself back in the library, the book open before me, its pages swirling with dark energy. I could hear the voices growing louder, a cacophony of whispers urging me to read, to uncover the truth. But this time, the words felt like a trap, tightening around me like a noose. Ethan read, they chanted, and I felt myself slipping away, consumed by the darkness of the book. I awoke in a cold sweat, my heart racing, panic clawing at my chest. The next morning, I stumbled out of bed, the remnants of the nightmare still clinging to me like a fog. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread as I reached for my phone. My heart sank as I scrolled through my messages. Jake was missing. The weight of guilt crashed over me like a tidal wave. I had been so consumed by the book, so lost in my own obsession, that I hadn't noticed the danger lurking around me. It was as if the very fabric of my reality was unraveling, and I was powerless to stop it. I rushed to the library, desperation clawing at my throat. Clara was there, her face etched with concern as she met my frantic gaze. "Ethan, what have you done?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need to find Jake," I said, my voice breaking. "He's gone." I think it's because the air in the small town had grown thick with unease in the days following Jake's disappearance. I could feel it pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe, as if the very atmosphere was mourning the loss. Each time I walked through the streets, I caught sight of whispered conversations and worried glances cast my way. But they weren't the only ones whispering. I could hear the whispers of the book, too, echoing in the back of my mind, as if it were taunting me for my obsession, for the part one played in Jake's fate. I found myself wandering the familiar path to the old library, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and determination. The once inviting oak doors now appeared to loom over me, dark and foreboding. What had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a trap, one that I could not escape. But I had to know. I had to understand what had happened to Jake. Each step toward the library felt like I was walking deeper into a nightmare. Yet I pressed on, compelled by an unseen force. The moment I entered, the scent of old paper and dust enveloped me like a shroud. The shadows danced in the corners, flickering in the dim light, and I could almost hear the walls breathing. "Ethan," I whispered to myself, trying to fortify my resolve. "You have to find the truth." I made my way to the back of the library, where I had first stumbled upon the book that now haunted my every thought. The wooden shelves creaked under the weight of forgotten stories, and as I reached for the book, I felt a chill run down my spine. My fingers brushed against the worn cover, and the moment I opened it, the familiar murmurs seeped into my consciousness. It was as if the book was alive, greeting me like an old friend, but also reminding me of the cost of our connection. "Ethan," a voice broke through the whispers. It was Clara, the enigmatic librarian who had warned me before. She stood before me, her eyes piercing and filled with a mixture of concern and something else. Was it fear? "You shouldn't be here." I shook my head, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "I need to find Jake. I need to understand what happened to him." My voice trembled, but I stood firm, unwilling to let fear dictate my actions. Clara stepped closer, her expression softening. "You're not ready for what you might find. The book, it holds secrets that can destroy you." "Then let it destroy me," I snapped, gripping the book tighter. "I can't just stand here and do nothing while my friend is gone. I won't abandon him." Ethan, please, Clara implored, her voice almost pleading. You're treading on dangerous ground. The more you read, the more you invite the shadows into your life. I've seen what this book can do to those who seek its knowledge. But I was already lost in my own thoughts, the whispers growing louder, urging me to read. I brushed past her, my heart racing as I flipped through the pages, searching for anything that might lead me to Jake. The words blurred together, but I could feel the weight of the book pressing down on me, demanding my attention. Every page you turn, every secret you uncover, comes with a price. Clara continued, her voice fading into the background as I lost myself in the text. You don't realize the danger you're placing yourself in. Suddenly, a passage caught my eye. It spoke of a ritual, an ancient practice tied to the very fabric of our town. My heart raced as I read on, the words weaving a dark tapestry of history and sacrifice. It detailed the existence of a realm intertwined with our own, a place where lost souls could be trapped for eternity. No, I murmured, a creeping dread settling in my stomach. Is that where Jake is? Ethan, Clara's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. You have to stop. Please, think about what you're doing. But I was too far gone. The urgency of finding Jake consumed me. I have to know, Clara. I have to understand what happened. I looked up at her, desperation etched on my face. He's my friend. I can't just let this go. Sometimes, letting go is the only way to save yourself, she replied, her voice trembling. I shook my head defiantly. No, I won't let this book take him from me. It can't take him from me. My grip on the book tightened as I turned another page, hardly aware of the shifting shadows around me. The text revealed the existence of a doorway, a portal that could connect the realms. I read faster, the words flowing like a river through my mind, each one igniting a sense of urgency in my chest. There has to be a way to save him, I whispered, more to myself than to Clara. Ethan, please, she said, desperation tinging her voice. You don't understand the forces you're dealing with. They're not just stories. They're real. You could lose everything, even yourself. I hesitated, the weight of her words crashing over me like a wave. But the thought of Jake, his laughter, his smile, the way he always had my back, spurred me on. I can't lose him. He needs me. Clara stepped closer, trying to reach me. If you continue down this path, you might not just lose him. You could lose yourself, your sanity, your very soul. The book is a trap, Ethan. It feeds on your desires and turns them into nightmares. But I could barely hear her over the cacophony of thoughts swirling in my mind. Each sentence I read felt like a thread pulling me deeper into the abyss. I have to keep going. I can't stop now, I replied, my voice almost a plea. Then you're making a grave mistake, Clara whispered, her expression shifting from concern to resignation. I could see the shadows flickering in her eyes, as if they were trying to warn me. But if you choose this path, know that I cannot help you. I understand, I said, forcing myself to look back at the pages. The words began to blur, but I pressed on, compelled by a force greater than my own will. As the minutes stretched into hours, I felt the pull of the book intensify. It was as if it was alive, pulsating with energy as I read about the portal. I could feel the gravity of the situation, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. My heart raced, and the whispers grew louder, urging me to continue, to seek the truth at any cost. Ethan, please, Clara's voice echoed, almost drowned out by the whispers. You have to stop this. You're losing yourself in the shadows. But I was beyond reason, consumed by the need to find Jake. I turned the pages feverishly, each revelation pulling me closer to the edge. The book spoke of sacrifices, of choices that could bind me to the darkness forever. Yet, in my heart, I felt that I was running out of time. Suddenly, I felt a chill sweep through the room, as if the air had thickened with anticipation. The shadows danced along the walls, and I could sense a presence lurking just beyond my sight. I pressed on, determined to find the passage that would lead me to Jake. Ethan, Clara's voice broke through the haze once more. You need to be careful. The book is reacting to your emotions. I glanced up, but my focus was still on the pages. I can't stop now. I have to find him. Then understand this, she said, urgency spilling from her words. Every secret you uncover has consequences. You need to make a choice, and it may not be one you can live with. I could feel the walls closing in, the shadows creeping closer, wrapping around me like tendrils of smoke. But all I could think about was Jake and the desperate need to save him. I can't let him be trapped forever. I have to try. With renewed determination, I continued to read, the words blurring into a frenzy of emotions and fears. It felt as though the shadows were alive, swirling around me, drawing me deeper into their fold. I was on the brink of something monumental, and I could feel it in my bones. But in the back of my mind, Clara's warning echoed like a distant bell, tolling for my impending doom. I was crossing a line, and I knew it. Yet, the thought of Jake spurred me on, igniting a fire within me that refused to be extinguished. I would find a way to save him, no matter the cost. The dim light of the library flickered above me as I turned the pages of the ancient book, its cracked leather cover creaking slightly under my grip. My heart raced with every word I absorbed, and the air felt charged with a strange energy. I had been poring over the book for hours, lost in the murky depths of my family's history, when I stumbled upon something that made me stop dead in my tracks. It wasn't just the tales of the town that captured my attention. It was the shocking realization that my family had a history intertwined with the very shadows that haunted this place. As I flipped through the brittle pages, a sense of dread washed over me. I had already read about the tragic events that befell the residents of our town. But this was different. This was personal. I read aloud, the words spilling from my lips like a forbidden incantation. In the year of our Lord 1875, the Whitaker lineage was forever altered by a pact made in darkness. The air around me seemed to thicken, and I could almost hear the faint whispers of voices that echoed in the dusty corners of the library. "Ethan?" A voice interrupted my concentration, pulling me back to reality. It was Clara, the mysterious librarian who had warned me before about the dangers of the book. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mix of concern and something else, something I couldn't quite place. "You need to stop this. You're digging into things you don't understand." "Clara, you don't understand," I replied, my voice tinged with urgency. "This isn't just a story. It's about my family. My ancestors made a pact, and I need to know what it means." I felt a tremor of adrenaline as I spoke, the weight of destiny pressing down on me. "Ethan?" she pressed, stepping closer, her tone almost pleading. "Some secrets are meant to remain buried. The book, it has a mind of its own. Every time you read, you invite its influence into your life. You don't know what you're dealing with." "Maybe I don't," I shot back, feeling defensive and stubborn. "But I can't just walk away from this. If there's a chance to understand who I am and where I come from, I have to take it." Clara sighed, her brow furrowing in frustration. "You think uncovering these secrets will bring you peace? You might find answers, but they'll come at a cost. You'll lose more than you bargained for." I didn't want to hear her warnings anymore. The pull of the book was too strong, and I felt an insatiable hunger to learn more. After she left, I returned to my reading, my heart pounding as I flipped to the next page. The words seemed to leap off the paper, and I felt as if they were reaching out to me, urging me to delve deeper. The next passage detailed the history of the Whitakers, a lineage clouded in mystery and tragedy. An ancestor, Jonathan Whitaker, sought power beyond comprehension. In his desperation, he made a deal with dark forces, trading his family's future for knowledge and influence. I could hardly breathe as I read, feeling the weight of my heritage pressing down on me. What had my family done? What sacrifices had been made? I continued reading, my fingers tracing the faded ink as if the words themselves were alive. The consequences of this pact would reverberate through generations, manifesting in despair and loss. The mention of despair sent chills down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was somehow bound to this dark legacy. "Ethan," Jake's voice broke through my thoughts like a gunshot. I looked up to see him and Sarah entering the library, their expressions a mix of worry and frustration. "We've been looking for you. What the hell are you doing here?" "I'm uncovering the truth," I replied defiantly, closing the book but not before they caught a glimpse of the ominous pages. "About what?" Sarah asked, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't a game, Ethan. We're genuinely concerned about you. You haven't been yourself lately." "I'm fine," I snapped, the weight of my discoveries making me irritable. "You don't understand. This is about my family. There's a history here, my history." Jake stepped forward, his brow furrowed in concern. "Dude, you're obsessed. You can't keep doing this. You're scaring us." I felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by the urgency of my quest. I have to know what happened to them. If there's a chance that this book can explain why things are the way they are, I can't just ignore it. "Ethan, listen," Sarah interjected, her voice softening. "We're your friends. We care about you. But this isn't healthy. You need to take a step back." I shook my head, the fire of determination igniting within me. "You don't get it. My family has been cursed, and I can't let it continue. There's something dark at play, and I need to confront it." "Confronting it could get you hurt," Jake warned, crossing his arms. "What if the stories in that book are true? What if you're just opening a door you can't close? Maybe it's a door that needs to be opened," I countered, my heart racing with conviction. "If I can understand the past, I can change the future." With that, I turned away from them, desperate to return to the pages that held the secrets of my ancestry. I could feel their eyes boring into my back, but I brushed off their concerns. The book was calling me, and I had to answer. As I resumed my reading, a shiver ran down my spine. The next section detailed a series of tragedies that befell the Whitaker family. In the wake of Jonathan's pact, each descendant faced their own trials. Loss followed loss, and madness crept into the hearts of those who sought the truth. I felt as if I were reading a warning label, each word a reminder of the consequences of my choices. But deep inside, a voice urged me to continue. I had to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Suddenly, an entry caught my eye. A passage about my grandmother, a woman I barely remembered. Margaret Whitaker was said to have been plagued by visions, haunted by the spirits of her ancestors who sought to warn her of the darkness that lay ahead. My breath hitched. Visions? Was this the reason for the strange occurrences I had experienced since starting the book? "Ethan, please." Sarah's voice broke through my reverie again, more insistent this time. "You need to put that down. This isn't worth it." "Sarah, I can't," I shouted, feeling the walls closing in around me. "I have to know what happened to my family. If I don't, how can I ever hope to escape this legacy?" "Escape what?" Jake asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. "What are you even talking about?" I paused, the weight of my words settling heavily in the air. "The darkness," I whispered, almost to myself. "The curse that's been passed down through generations. It's all connected. If I can find a way to break it." Before I could finish, shadows flickered in the corners of the library, drawing my attention. I felt a presence, something lurking just beyond my line of sight. "Ethan," Clara's voice echoed in my mind, warning me again, but I was too far gone. The book had me in its grip, and I could not turn back. "Do you really think you can change what's already been written?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I have to try." I felt resolute. I can't just pretend this doesn't exist. As I returned to the book, I discovered a hidden diary tucked between the pages, its leather cover worn and fragile. My heart raced as I carefully opened it, revealing my ancestors' scribbled thoughts. The darkness is insatiable. It hungers for more. I fear for my children, for their futures. The pact was a mistake, but how do I undo what has been done? The words felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Was this the legacy of my family? Was this why I had been feeling so haunted lately? I read on, my fingers trembling as I turned the pages. I must warn them, but how can I convey the truth without damning them to the same fate? My mind raced, If my ancestor had sought to escape the burden of the pact, perhaps there was a way for me to do the same. I could feel the weight of my family's history pressing down on me, and with every word, I felt more connected to their plight. I will not let this curse continue, I vowed silently. I will break this cycle. But even as I read, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the shadows were closing in. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Clara or even my friends lurking nearby, but the library was silent, the only sound being the rustling of the pages as I turned them feverishly. The diary continued to reveal secrets, detailing the desperate attempts of my ancestors to break free from the pact. I sought the help of mystics, but each attempt only led to more despair. The darkness grows stronger with every revelation. Why? I muttered. The air in the dimly lit library felt heavier than before, as if the very walls were closing in on me. I had come to understand the weight of the secrets held within the pages of the book I had unearthed. A book that seemed to breathe and pulse with a life of its own. The whispers had grown louder, more insistent, and I could feel Clara's presence drawing closer, her warnings echoing in my mind like a relentless drumbeat. As I turned a corner, I spotted her standing between two towering shelves, her silhouette a stark contrast against the rows of dusty tomes. "Ethan," she called softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried an urgency that sent a shiver down my spine. "You need to stop this." "Stop what?" I replied, feigning ignorance as I clutched the book tightly to my chest, the leather cover warm against my skin. "I'm just trying to understand." "Understand?" Clara's eyes narrowed, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of the pain etched into her features. "What you're doing is dangerous. The book, it's not just a collection of stories. It's a portal, Ethan. A gateway to things you can't begin to comprehend." I took a step forward, drawn to her intensity, but also defensive. "You don't understand. I found something incredible, something that could change everything for my family. My past, it's all here." I gestured to the book, the pages fluttering slightly as if in response to my words. Her expression softened for a moment, but then darkened again. "You're playing with forces beyond your control. You've already felt it, haven't you? The shadows? The whispers? They're growing stronger because of you." I shook my head, dismissing her concerns. "But I have to know. I have to uncover the truth about my family. What if there's something in there that can help us? Something that explains what happened to Jake. Don't you see?" Clara stepped closer, her voice a mix of desperation and resolve. "Every secret you uncover comes at a cost. You may think you're strong enough to handle it, but you're not. The truth is a double-edged sword. Ethan." I felt a surge of anger rise within me. "You don't get to decide what I can or cannot handle. You don't know what it's like to live with this weight, this uncertainty about who I am and where I come from." "Indeed, I do." Clara's tone shifted, her voice laced with an unexpected sadness. "I know all too well what it means to be lost in the shadows of your own history, but I also know what it's like to pay the price." I bristled at her words. "What do you mean? What price did you pay?" She hesitated, her gaze drifting to the floor as if the memories were too painful to bear. "I was once like you, curious, driven by a need to know. I uncovered secrets that should have remained buried. In my pursuit of knowledge, I lost my freedom. I became a guardian of this library, a warden for those who wander too close to the truth." "Guardian?" I echoed, skepticism bleeding into my voice. "You mean you're trapped here?" "Trapped," she confirmed, her voice a mere whisper now. "Bound to this place and to the book. I was cursed to remain here, to watch over those who seek what they should not." "What if I don't want to be like you?" I shot back, my heart racing. "I want to break free from this cycle. I want to find Jake, not be a prisoner of this library." Clara stepped back, her expression pained. "Then you must listen, Ethan. You're not just uncovering your family's past. You're awakening something that sleeps, something dark and malevolent. This book, it hungers for knowledge. It wants you to feed it." "Feed it?" I felt a lump form in my throat. "What do you mean?" "The more you read, the more it demands from you. It will take pieces of you, your memories, your friends, your very essence. You have to make a choice. What choice? I demanded, frustration bubbling inside me. What are you asking me to do? Choose to walk away, Clara urged, her eyes pleading. You can still escape this fate. You can still save your friend. I hesitated, torn between the allure of the secrets within the book and the growing dread in Clara's voice. But what if I can't? What if I'm meant to know this? What if Jake is already lost because of me? Then you must turn to the light, not the darkness, she said, desperation creeping into her tone. Ethan, please, you're at a crossroads. You can't let the book consume you. It will take everything you hold dear. I felt the weight of her words settle over me like a heavy shroud. What if I don't care about the consequences? What if I need to know the truth, even if it means losing everything? Then you're sealing your fate, Clara murmured, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You're not just putting yourself at risk, you're endangering the lives of those you love. In that moment, a wave of doubt crashed over me. I glanced down at the book, the pages now flickering with an almost hypnotic glow. It called to me, its whispers weaving a tapestry of history and sorrow. But I could feel the shadows lurking just beyond the edges of my vision, creeping closer with every heartbeat. I just want to understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I want to make sense of everything that's happened. Understanding is a gift and a curse, Clara replied softly. You must decide whether you're willing to pay the price. Knowledge can liberate or imprison you. The choice is yours to make. What if I don't want to make a choice? I challenged, feeling a mix of defiance and fear. What if I want to keep reading? Then you must face the consequences. Ethan, she warned, stepping even closer, her voice urgent. And I fear that you will lose more than you can bear. I can't just walk away, I insisted, a fire igniting within me. Not now. The truth is too close. I can feel it. Clara took a deep breath, a flicker of resignation crossing her face. Then know this. Once you cross that threshold, there's no turning back. You will invite the darkness into your life, and it may take more than you're willing to give. I don't care, I said, my heart racing. I need to find Jake. With those words, I turned away from Clara, my resolve hardening as I faced the book once more. I could feel the air around me shift, thickening with anticipation. The shadows seemed to swirl, almost alive, and the whispers rose to a crescendo, urging me to continue. As I opened the book, the pages rustled like a breeze had swept through the library. The words danced before my eyes, weaving together stories of my ancestors, tales of love and loss, triumph and tragedy. I was drawn in, my heart pounding in my chest, a mix of exhilaration and dread. Ethan, Clara's voice pierced through the haze, but I was already lost in the pages, the pull of the book too strong to resist. The flickering shadows entwined around me, whispering secrets of the past, and I felt the weight of my decisions pressing down, the air thick with unspoken consequences. Ethan, please, Clara's voice echoed, but it was fading, lost in the cacophony of the book's call. I couldn't turn back now. I was on the precipice of understanding, and I had to know what lay beyond the veil of my family's past. With each word I read, I felt the boundaries of reality blurring, and the shadows grew darker, more pronounced. I was no longer just reading. I was becoming part of the story, entwined with the fates of those who had come before me. The truth was within reach, and I was determined to grasp it, no matter the cost. The air in the library felt electric as I stood there, the ancient book in my hands pulsating with energy. I could hear the whispers of the pages, an alluring promise of knowledge that beckoned me closer. The weight of the world felt like it rested on my shoulders, but all I could think about was Jake. He had disappeared, and with every word I read, I felt like I was getting closer to understanding what had happened to him. Ethan, are you really going to do this? Clara's voice broke through my thoughts, her tone a mix of concern and urgency. She stood a few feet away, her presence both comforting and unsettling. I could see the worry etched on her face, the way her eyes darted to the tome in my grasp. I have to, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. This book, it's connected to Jake. I can feel it. I just need to read a little more. My heart raced as I turned the pages, the words dancing before my eyes like shadows in the dim light of the library. Ethan, please, she urged, stepping closer. You don't understand what you're dealing with. This book is dangerous. It holds secrets that should stay buried. Her words struck me, but something deeper within me rebelled against the idea of stopping. I can't just sit here and do nothing while my best friend is trapped somewhere. If this book has the answers, then I need to find them. I could see the conflict in her eyes, but I pushed forward, ignoring the chill that ran down my spine. As I continued to read, the text began to shift and swirl, revealing images of a place I had never seen but felt somehow familiar. It was a dark, twisted version of our town, where shadows loomed larger than life, and the air was thick with despair. I could almost hear Jake's voice echoing through the pages, calling out to me. Ethan, I heard him shout, the sound ricocheting off the walls of my mind. Help me, Jake, I gasped, gripping the book tightly. Jake, where are you? Ethan, focus. Clara's voice broke through once more, but I was lost in the depths of the book. The words twisted, revealing a revelation that sent a shiver down my spine. It says here, I murmured, my eyes scanning the text, that there's a way to enter the dimension where he is, but it requires a sacrifice. A sacrifice? Clara echoed, her voice shaking. What kind of sacrifice? I don't know yet, I admitted, my heart racing. But it can't be something too terrible, right? You can't be serious, she exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch. Ethan, this is not a game. You're talking about something that could cost you everything. I don't care, I shouted, frustration boiling over. Jake is my friend. I can't just let him suffer because I'm afraid of what might happen to me. The shadows around us seemed to pulse in agreement, as if the library itself were urging me on. I felt a surge of determination as I read further, the urgency of my mission overshadowing the fear that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. Ethan, please, Clara begged, stepping closer, her eyes imploring. You need to think this through. You're playing with forces you don't understand. I'll think about it later, I said, the words spilling from my mouth before I even considered their weight. I needed to know how to save Jake. The text shifted again, a new passage emerging that seemed to shimmer with a sinister light. To enter the alternate dimension, I read aloud, one must offer something of great personal value, something that connects them to the world they wish to save. What does that even mean? Clara asked, desperation coloring her voice. Ethan, please don't do this. I have to. I insisted, my resolve hardening. I'll find a way to save him, I swear it. Suddenly, a chill swept through the library, freezing the air in my lungs. I shivered, the whispers growing louder, almost mocking me. I could feel the pressure of the book against my palms, urging me to continue, to delve deeper into the secrets it held. Ethan, Clara's voice was sharp, cutting through the haze. You're losing yourself in this. You can't let it consume you. I'm not. I shot back, the defensiveness in my tone betraying my inner turmoil. I just need to. But before I could finish, the book reacted violently, pages flipping on their own, revealing frantic scribbles and symbols that made no sense. What is happening? I exclaimed, my heart racing. It's warning you, Clara cried, her voice rising with panic. You need to stop. But I couldn't stop. I felt an irresistible pull, as if the book were alive and beckoning me to uncover its mysteries. There has to be a way to bring Jake back, I whispered, my eyes darting over the words. Ethan, Clara shouted, her voice strained. You're playing a game you can't win. This isn't just about you. I felt a surge of frustration. It is about me. It's about Jake. And it's about saving him. Sometimes you have to let go, she pleaded, desperation edging into her tone. You can't save everyone, but I couldn't accept that. I wouldn't. I'm not letting him go, I declared, my voice firm. I'm going to find a way. As I continued to read, the book revealed more about the alternate dimension. "It says here that I can enter, but I might not come back," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, please," Clara said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You don't have to do this alone." "I can't do this without Jake," I replied, my heart aching at the thought of losing him forever. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the pages, deep and resonant. "To save him, you must choose wisely, for the price of knowledge is steep." Who said that?" I stammered, my pulse quickening. "Ethan," Clara warned, her voice trembling, "you're not alone in this space. You need to be careful." "I don't care," I shouted, frustration boiling over. "I'm going to save Jake." With that, I took a deep breath and read the passage aloud, my voice steady. "To enter the alternate dimension, one must offer something of great personal value." At that moment, the air shifted, and I felt a rush of energy surge through me. The library blurred around the edges, shadows swirling as the weight of the book pressed down on me. I closed my eyes, feeling the ground beneath me shift, and suddenly, I was falling. "Ethan," Clara's voice was distant, fading as I plummeted through the darkness. I landed hard on the ground, gasping for breath as I looked around. The world was a twisted version of my own, filled with shadows and echoes of the past. I could see Jake's face in the distance, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. "Jake!" I shouted, running toward him. "Ethan!" he called back, his voice desperate. "Where are you?" "I'm coming," I yelled, pushing through the darkness, but the shadows clung to me, pulling me back. "Ethan!" Jake's voice echoed, and I felt a surge of determination. "Don't give up." "I won't," I shouted, fighting against the shadows that threatened to swallow me whole. As I stumbled forward, I could feel the weight of the book in my hands, the knowledge it held pressing down on me. I had to find Jake. I had to rescue him, no matter the cost. "Jake!" I cried out again, my voice breaking through the darkness. "I'm here. I'm coming for you." But as I pushed forward, the shadows began to close in, and I realized that the price of my knowledge was becoming clearer. I could feel the weight of my choices bearing down on me, the cost of uncovering the truth rising like a tide. "Ethan!" Jake's voice called again, closer this time. "Help me!" "I will!" I yelled, determination fueling my every step. "I'm coming!" The shadows writhed around me, and I could feel their cold fingers grasping at my heart, trying to pull me back. But I pushed forward, my mind focused on Jake, my friend who was trapped in this twisted realm. As I reached the edge of the darkness, I could see him. He was just beyond my grasp, the shadows swirling around him like a storm. "Jake!" I shouted, stretching out my hand. "I'm almost there." "Ethan!" he cried, reaching out to me. "Don't stop, please." But the shadows were relentless, and I could feel their grip tightening around me. I was losing my strength, losing my grip on reality. "Jake!" I screamed, desperation lacing my voice. "I won't leave you." In that moment, I felt the weight of the book shift. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind. Every choice has a cost. I gritted my teeth. The air in the library felt heavy, almost electric, as I stood there, staring at the ancient tome in my hands. The pages trembled slightly, as if they were alive, whispering secrets that echoed through the dusty air. It was a moment of agonizing clarity, the kind that grips you with an iron fist, squeezing the breath from your lungs. I knew what I had to do, but the cost was unfathomable. "Ethan, you can't be serious." Jake's voice broke through my thoughts, filled with panic. I could see the fear in his eyes, reflecting the chaos that had taken over my mind. "This isn't just about you anymore. You're playing with something you don't understand." I could barely register his words as I felt the book pulse in my grasp, a heartbeat that synchronized with my own. It called to me, promising revelations, a connection to my ancestry, and perhaps even the means to save Jake. But the price? It loomed over me like a dark cloud. "I have to do it, Jake," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't just leave him there." We have to try. Try what? Sarah piped up, her voice tinged with desperation. You can't just read that thing and expect it to work out. You heard what Clara said. This book isn't just a collection of stories. It's a curse. The shadows in the library seemed to thicken, swirling like a storm around us. I felt their weight pressing down, urging me to make my choice. I glanced back at the book, its leather cover cracked and worn, yet inviting. What lay within could change everything. The history of my family entwined with the fate of my friend. Look, the book says, I began, but Jake cut me off. No, you have to stop this madness. We need to leave before it's too late. His voice rose in urgency, and I could see the beads of sweat forming on his brow. But I couldn't stop. I wouldn't. Not now, not when I was so close to unraveling the truth. Jake, you don't understand. This is bigger than us. I can feel it. I can feel him. Jake's eyes widened in disbelief, and for a moment, I saw the flicker of doubt in his resolve. Ethan, if you do this, you might lose yourself. You might lose us. I shook my head, feeling the pull of the book stronger than ever. I can't abandon him, Jake. I won't. With a deep breath, I turned to the pages, my heart racing as I began to read aloud. The words tumbled from my lips, imbued with a power that resonated within the very walls of the library. As I read, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows danced around me, growing bolder, swirling closer as if they were drawn to my voice. I could feel the air grow thick, and the whispers intensified. A chorus of voices, some familiar, others foreign. They enveloped me, drowning out Jake and Sarah's protests. Ethan, stop! Sarah cried, her voice strained. Please, you're losing yourself. But I was too far gone. The words flowed through me, filling my mind with images and visions. I saw Jake, trapped in that other dimension, his face twisted in fear. I could hear his cries for help, echoing through the fabric of reality. With each syllable, I felt the boundaries of our world bending and warping, the library fading into a blur of shadows and light. Jake! I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. I'm coming for you. Suddenly, I reached a passage that sent a shiver down my spine. It promised liberation, a way to rescue my friend, but at a horrific cost. I hesitated, the weight of the decision crashing down upon me. What if it's a trap? A small voice in my mind whispered, but the thought was quickly drowned out by the urgency of the moment. Ethan, think. Jake's voice broke through the haze, filled with panic. You don't have to do this. But I was already too deep, my heart racing as the words compelled me forward. I have to save you, Jake. I can't let you stay there. I pressed on, my voice rising in intensity. I'll do whatever it takes. The pages shimmered ominously, and I could feel a dark energy coiling around me. With this reading, I released the captive soul. I read, my voice echoing through the library. But in exchange, the reader must take their place. The bond must be fulfilled, for the balance of the world demands it. What? Jake gasped, realization dawning on him. Ethan, no. But it was too late. The words took hold of me, wrapping around my consciousness like a vice. A blinding light erupted from the book, consuming the space around us. I felt the pull of the pages, a magnetic force drawing me deeper. Couldn't stop it. Couldn't fight it. Ethan, Jake screamed, his voice a distant echo. You can't do this. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. But the whispers grew louder, drowning out his pleas. They were calling my name, promising freedom, knowledge, and power. Ethan, they beckoned. You are destined for greatness. Embrace your fate. In that moment of despair and determination, I made my choice. I would save Jake no matter the cost. I accept, I shouted, the words tearing from my throat as the light enveloped me. The sensation was overwhelming. A torrent of energy surged through me, and I felt myself being pulled apart and reformed, as if I were being woven into the very fabric of the book. I could feel Jake's essence slipping away, and I reached out, desperate to hold on. Jake, I'm sorry. I'll find you. But just as quickly as it had begun, The light dissipated, leaving me standing alone in the library. The book closed before me. I felt a cold emptiness wrap around my heart, a void that echoed with the weight of my sacrifice. "Ethan," a voice whispered, barely audible. I turned, searching the shadows, my heart pounding. "Ethan, help me." It was Jake's voice, but it sounded distant, fading like a dream. I staggered back, the realization crashing over me like a tidal wave. "No, Jake!" I cried, but the library only echoed my despair. As I stood there, I felt the darkness creeping in, a chilling embrace that wrapped around my soul. I was trapped within the very pages of the book, my essence intertwined with its cursed magic. I was no longer just Ethan. I was part of the story, part of the shadows that whispered and beckoned. "Ethan," I heard Sarah's voice, frantic and desperate. "Please, where are you?" But the words felt distant, like a memory slipping through my fingers. I could see her and Jake outside, their faces etched with anguish. But I was bound to the library now, a prisoner of my own making. "Ethan, please," Sarah cried, her voice breaking. "We need you. Don't leave us." I tried to reach out, to call to them, but my voice was lost in the void. I felt the pull of the book, its whispers promising knowledge and power, but at what cost? I had sacrificed everything for a chance to save my friend, and now I was lost to the shadows. "Ethan, I'm sorry." Jake's voice echoed through the darkness, filled with regret. "I should have stopped you. I should have, but it was too late. I had chosen this path, and now I had to live with the consequences." The library stood silent, the book resting before me, its pages waiting to be turned, to reveal the next chapter in a story that would never end. In my heart, I knew the truth. I had saved Jake, but in doing so, I had condemned myself. The book continued to whisper, a siren's song that would lure in the next unsuspecting soul, waiting for its next victim. And as the shadows closed in around me, I realized I was now part of that story, a tragic tale of knowledge at a terrible price.